For a favorite piece, one of the favorite pieces is The Thinker in Gallery 1, which is one of the most famous pieces of prehistoric European art. It's on the cover of art books. It's been included in art books all over the world. It's probably the most famous piece in this exhibit. But it's famous partially because it was excavated a long time ago, and it's had a long time to sort of slowly sink into the consciousness of the Western world. Many of the other objects in this exhibit are just as interesting, or even more interesting in my estimation, but people don't know about them. And they haven't been known for so long. So there hasn't been time for them, or the opportunity for them to get into the consciousness of people from the West. Objects from the show. I would say first there is an entire gallery of female figurines which have become quite famous. And they've been featured in works by the archaeologist and comparative mythologist Arianii Daci in a series of coffee table books, The Language of the Goddess, The Civilization of the Goddess, The Gods and Goddesses of Old Europe. And it was really Arianii Daci at UCLA who came up with the term Old Europe in her first book of this type, published in 1974. So there's an entire gallery of figurines that she is focused on as the origin of what she presented as a kind of utopian ideal society that was organized and dominated by females whose values of nurturance and aesthetics dominated the entire society. These ideas of hers have generated a very large following. This exhibit is the first time these figurines have been brought to the United States so that people who are interested in these ideas can see them. The idea that old Europe constituted an idealized world without violence, where women were dominant, and values of aesthetics and nurturance were the center of the society, is highly debated. And we present that debate also.
to recent archaeological studies, migration of the Tripilia-Cucuteni peoples occurred approximately 3000 BC from Central Europe via the Alps, finally arriving in the Po Valley. During August and September 2010, OCA, Osservatorio della Civiltà Archaica, carried out an archaeological excavation on the east side of Piazza del Foro, Brescia, prior to structural examination of existing buildings. The excavation demonstrated the existence of late and early medieval occupation of the site. However, no remains of the Roman Forum were discovered, since the stones had clearly been removed to provide building material in the post-Roman period. Below the layers containing Roman material, a number of circular post holes were discovered, which appeared to form a rectangular structure, such as a hut or a shelter. On the west side and inside these post holes, a rectangular pit approximately 80 centimeters by 80 centimeters by 30 centimeters deep was excavated. The pit contained a number of ceramic objects, and from their state of preservation it seems clear that this was some sort of ritual deposit. The objects in the pit and pottery recovered from associated layers have been dated to approximately 2600 BC and are clearly from the Tripilia-Cucuteni culture, coming from the area of the Danube, which today corresponds to Romania, part of Ukraine, and the Republic of Moldova. The new discoveries paint a different picture of the historical interpretation of the city. They ask questions about its identity, about its origins, which are the result of complex processes determined by the interaction of peoples sharing ideas and thoughts. There is no evidence that these migrations involved conquest or colonization, but rather a process of cultural enrichment demonstrating positive changes, originality and creativity. Thus, different cultures can interact and learn and grow, something which has been happening for thousands of years. The Tripilia-Cucuteni culture is recognized as being egalitarian, matriarchal, pacifist, and founded on principles of community living, similar to modern ideas of democracy and autonomy. Humans are a living part of the cultural ecosystem. Sometimes a group or people can disappear without trace, which can influence our perception of the past. These voids and spaces should not be filled by people who want to manipulate the past, to manipulate the present.
La conoscenza è la miglior arma contro il pregiudizio, un motivo in più per andare a visitare la mostra ai mercati di Traiano, ori antichi della Romania. 140 preziosi tesori provenienti da corredi tombali, arredi liturgici risalenti al periodo compreso tra il XVII secolo a.C. e il VI d.C. Esposti fino al 3 aprile arrivano a Roma per la prima volta gli oggetti prodotti dai Daci, la popolazione resa celebre dalla conquista dei Romani, guidati dall'imperatore Traiano all'inizio del II secolo d.C. Sono pezzi unici e prestigiosi provenienti dal Tesoro Nazionale conservato nel Museo di Bucarest, un altro valido motivo per vedere la mostra.
Desidererei sottolineare anche che si tratta di reperti dal valore eccezionale sia nell'ambito del patrimonio nazionale rumeno sia nell'ambito del patrimonio culturale europeo e mondiale, e si tratta di reperti a partire dal primo millennio a.C. e fino al primo millennio d.C.
Sono collane, bracciali spiraliformi, elmi, piatti, contenitori e spille, ma il loro valore va ben oltre la bellezza estetica dell'oggetto. In ogni pezzo c'è un personaggio e una storia, c'è un passato, tutto da riscoprire che unisce più di quanto ci si aspetti Roma alla Romania.
Qui siamo nei mercati di Traiano. Traiano è quell'imperatore che proprio alla fine del primo secolo, all'inizio del secondo secolo, apre verso la Romania. Voglio ricordare che i messaggi forti che dà una mostra del genere. La Romania, i romeni sono la prima comunità presente in città, quindi a Roma, quindi un messaggio di carattere multiculturale. La Romania era considerata, i Daci nel mondo romano erano considerati popolazioni barbariche. Ecco, se noi andiamo a vedere bene la metallurgia, cioè come lavoravano loro, ci rendiamo conto che proprio non è una definizione adatta né storica. Hanno insegnato a noi.
Is the invention of copper metallurgy. The invention of metallurgy is something that affected all of us, not just the societies of old Europe. And it was these people who figured out how to extract copper from greenish and bluish rocks. Really a magical process. By pounding these rocks up, mixing it with charcoal, and then raising it to 1083 degrees centigrade inside a closed kiln. Once you did that, what you had put in as rock and charcoal came out as pure copper. A magical process that allowed the people of these societies to produce unlimited quantities of copper. Immediately, massive, large-scale mining began. Some of these mines are 90 feet deep, carved with antler picks down into limestone and dolomite rock to extract the copper ore. The copper that was extracted from the ore was then given to specialized craftsmen who melted it, used the molten copper to pour into molds. You can see cast-made objects. Some of the earliest objects made of molten copper poured into casts in the world are on display in this.
Și unul dintre directorii Institutului American a afirmat că realizarea catalogului științific a durat 1 an și jumătate, timp în care a colaborat cu 20 de instituții românești, printre care s-au numărat în afara Muzeului Național de Istorie și muzeele din Piatra Neamț și Iași.
Have you had chance to travel to Romania?
I've been 4 times in a year, so...
That's a big deal of work and effort.
It wasn't work and effort for me. It's an extraordinary country. It has beautiful landscape, rich history that, now we know, the American public will know, goes back to the prehistoric period, and it's a period that's so important because it predates Egypt and Mesopotamia. It's a country that has archaeological heritage that spans into the Roman period, and it also goes beyond that. I was able to even visit some medieval churches and medieval monasteries, so it's an extraordinary country.
This exhibit does not answer questions. It poses questions which will be answered by future archaeological research. I really do believe, and I think most of the archaeologists of Romania would agree with me, that we are just in the beginning of a new period of archaeological research, where a new generation of younger archaeologists with different ideas of how to interpret the past are conducting excavations at both old sites and new sites. It's very important that we continue archaeological excavations and that archaeologists get funding from the government to do that. Because we are just beginning to understand these cultures. This is not a finished work. This is a work that is just beginning.
Here we are at Saqqara. This is the famous step pyramid of Djoser. Djoser is a title to the king of the third dynasty, 2900 BC, roughly, said the books. The step pyramid is located in a big courtyard, much older than the pyramid itself. And you can compare yourself with the same eye. You look at the pyramid and you look at the wall, you can see the difference.
These chunks of stone in front of Hakim are quartz crystal.
Then it reflects the crystal tile on the ground. This is what's left of it. This has been quarried by the natives in the area in the 17th century.
We see the remains of a quartz floor at Giza, in the temple to the east of the second pyramid.
Now I'm pointing the jade pillar, which is symbolizing one of the ancient gods, Osiris. And jade is a word we still use to address the older people, like grandmother and grandfather, jade. It goes back to the story of Osiris and his brother Seth, the bad guy, who put Osiris in a coffin, threw him in the ocean. The ocean took him place, Phoenicia, Lebanon today, and there is the cedar tree grows, and the roots of the cedar tree captured this coffin. There it has been found by his beloved sister Isis. She cried, her tears touched his body, and they lived together again for a short while, short enough to make a baby with the name of Horus.
The story of Isis, Osiris, and Horus is fundamental to Egyptian cosmology. Isis is connected to the star Sirius, and Osiris is connected to the constellation of Orion. Horus is their prodigal son.
I'm going to take you now to see that hospital, the healing with the sound.
Stories about ancient healing techniques were passed down from generation to generation by the elders. Hakim explains how sound played a part in diagnosing and healing patients.
That line of construction you see like 3 chambers, it's what's left of the house of the spirit. And it's a healing system with a sound. It's a medical investigation table. And the patient...
The descendants of King Tut, 70% of British men, 70% of Spanish men, and 60% of French men all belong to this genetic group?
Yes, exactly. Yes, they share a common ancestor with these pharaohs.
Well, talk about those common ancestors. Where were they from? Who were they exactly?
We think they lived around the Black Sea or maybe in the Caucasus, but we don't know exactly where they lived. But this group was founded by one man who lived about 9,500 years ago in this area, around the Black Sea.
Is this surprising?
Yes, it is very surprising because we didn't know that this lineage of Tutankhamun came from the Black Sea or from Anatolia or the Caucasus, because it didn't came from Egypt. This was surprising for us. Yes.
Is it possible that because the group seems to be so large and includes so many, for example, 70% of British men or 70% of Spanish men and 60% of French men, that kind of thing, is it possible that there are other famous pharaohs or other famous people that are in this group?
Yes, I think so. It's possible. Of course, yes. As it's very big group, we sure have some other royal lineages which belong to this haplogroup.
Is it possible that it's even outside of the great Egyptian pharaohs and maybe other people?
Yes. We know of the last Russian Tsar, Nicholas II. He also belonged to the same haplogroup. He's also one of the famous ones who belonged to this group.
And what else is your research focusing in on now? Where do you take it from here? What happens next?
Well, what we wanted to do with this publication is to start the discussion, because I think it's very interesting to find this haplogroup in an ancient pharaoh, and we would like to know how did this lineage come to Egypt, and we of course are searching for the living closest relatives to this lineage by comparing the profile to the tests we will do within our project.
Well, we didn't mention the United States. I'm curious because a lot of the people in the United States, originally they've come from Europe. Mm-hmm. So have you studied the United States as well?
Well, we often concentrate on the European countries because our the customers of DNA companies from the United States do also want to know which European country they came from. Most Americans from Europe have British or for example, German ancestry, so Western European, and I think there's also many men live in the United States with this haplogroup.
Well, thank you for chatting with me.
Thank you too.
That's Roman Schultz, the managing director of Igena, the company studying the DNA of King Tut for the project. Are you a direct descendant of King Tut? You can find out more at our website, worldradio.ch.
O altă concluzie surprinzătoare pe care domnul Rodeval ne împărtășește vorbind despre moștenirea genetică lăsată de traci este aceea că
se conturează și o oarecare înrudire și cu populația actuală din Italia, de nord mai ales.
Așadar, cercetările de paleogenetică realizate acum câțiva ani ne spun că o parte dintre italieni, în special cei din nord, se înrudesc genetic cu tracii care au locuit acum 3.000-5.000 de ani pe teritoriul României. Haideți să plasăm aceste rezultate ale paleogeneticii în contextul istoric al antichității. Tracii ocupau acum 3000 de ani un spațiu imens din Europa și Asia Mică. Marea Neagră era înconjurată de neamurile tracice, istoricii greci numind-o de altfel acum 2500 de ani Marea Getică. Despre ei, Herodot spunea că sunt cei mai numeroși după inzi. Roma a fost înființată în anul 753 înaintea erei noastre, adică acum 2765 de ani. Istoricul roman Titus Livius, care a trăit între anii 59 înaintea erei noastre și 17 era noastră, a scris o lucrare, Ab Urbe Condita Libri, în care prezintă istoria înființării Romei și a poporului roman. El povestește în această scriere despre Enea, ginerele regelui Priam al Troiei, care imediat după căderea Troiei a fugit pe mare împreună cu alți troieni, a ajuns în actuala Italie și a întemeiat o cetate. Enea și troienii lui sunt considerați strămoșii romanilor. Doar că Troia, locul de unde au venit aceștia, este o cetate localizată de cercetători pe actualul teritoriu al Turciei, în Anatolia, o zonă locuită acum 3000 de ani de traci. Prin urmare, punând la un loc informațiile istorice despre traci, cu informațiile istorice despre înființarea Romei și cu rezultatele cercetărilor de paleogenetică prezentate, se naște o concluzie halucinantă, și anume că nu noi suntem urmașii romanilor, ci o parte dintre romani era urmașii tracilor.
It's the Science Times podcast for Tuesday, December 1st. It's the Science Times podcast for Tuesday, December 1st. I'm Jane Bornemeyer, editor of New York Times Radio, sitting in for David Corcoran, who's on vacation. This week, evidence of a highly developed civilization that predates ancient Greece and Rome. New research has broadened archaeologists' understanding of an ancient civilization they're calling Old Europe. It was highly developed and predates even ancient Greece and Rome. The civilization is the subject of a new book and of an exhibition here in New York City. John Noble Wilford has the story, and he's here with me now in our studio. John, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
So, John, it seems that before there was ancient Greece and ancient Rome, there was an ancient civilization somewhere in what we now know as Europe that was highly developed. Talk about the characteristics of that civilization.
The archaeologists are calling it Old Europe because it preceded Greece, Rome, and all of the other civilizations that are better known. This one is in the area that is now present-day Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, and along the Black Sea, and the lower Danube River Valley, and into the Balkan Hills. So it's a rather expansive area, and the people entered there from Greece. They brought along agriculture, and we're talking about 5,000 BC.
Mm-hmm. And about how many people?
Well, I don't think they really know. But some of the evidence for some of the towns, there's one site that looks to be about 800 acres and may have had 10,000 people. So these were not inconsequential settlements.
What were some of the characteristics of this civilization?
First of all, they were farmers.
Do you know what they grew?
They brought along barley and wheat seeds. They also brought along domesticated cattle and sheep. So it was a rather elementary farming system. But they became masters of the new technology of their day, which was copper smelting, large-scale copper smelting. There was copper ore in the Balkan hills, and they developed the techniques for high heat smelting to extract pure copper from the ore. From this, they cast axes and hammered knives and also made ornaments. They also seem to have been involved in long-distance trading with links into the rest of Europe, also into the Eurasian steppes.
John, let me ask you about the copper smelting. I mean, what was the source of heat high enough to melt copper?
They had gradually learned through ceramics how to get high heats, and over time they just started escalating that, and I guess at some point they must have been able to reach several thousand degrees.
Is that surprising that people at that time could achieve that?
Well, it was known that about this time, through parts of Europe as well as the Middle East, that you were beginning to have copper. Mm-hmm. After the Stone Age, you had a brief Copper Age before you entered the Bronze Age and Iron Age. I think the thing that was distinctive about these people is that they had a large-scale copper industry.
Mm-hmm. How did this, I guess my question is twofold. I mean, how did this civilization go unknown until now, number one, and how was it discovered?
In terms of modern archaeology, it was unknown until the early 20th century. And even then, all they were finding were some traces of some copper goods. It was known that there were some people there about 6,200 BC. It was known that there were settlements scattered through these three countries, Bulgaria, Romania, and Moldova, related through trade and cultural affinities. But we didn't know that. And then when local archaeologists began finding more and more things and starting to find some graves, by that time these countries were behind the Iron Curtain. They had no contacts with the West. They were not allowed contacts with the West. Mm-hmm. Therefore, our archaeologists didn't know what their archaeologists were doing. And it just sort of remained that way until in 1972, the Bulgarians discovered at Varna, which is on the Black Sea, they discovered a huge cemetery. They found the first graves, and then through the 70s and the 80s, they kept finding more and more graves. And this is when they discovered that these people were interesting. Mm-hmm. They were not just simple farmers. They were skilled. They were skilled. The graves at Varna are described as the largest known collections of gold up to that time. And this indicated that this culture wasn't just a very simple egalitarian culture. It had hierarchy.
And what became of this civilization? It died out in some way, or how?
Well, they don't know. Mm-hmm. They know that by 3500 BC, it became virtually extinct as a really cohesive culture. It was sort of declining for about 500 years before that. One of the most interesting hypotheses is that people from the steppes of Russia and Ukraine, once they developed horseback riding, they sort of rode in and took over.
Right. My last question for you, John. There's an exhibit of some of the artifacts from this era.
Yes, the Institute for the Study of the Ancient World, which is an institute of New York University. The exhibit is there on East 84th Street. It's two large galleries. There are about 250 artifacts, some of the gold from the graves at Varna, a lot of figurines, clay figurines of mostly women. They had a passion for forming small miniature clay women. This culture was quite advanced in visual language. That is, they had a lot of large, decorated, multicolored pots. Pans. Some of them seem to be involved in rather decorative, sort of in-home dining rituals.
Sounds wonderful. I'm going to go see it.
All right.
John Noble Wilford, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Showing here what obviously Chris first pointed this out in 1998 in the Giza power plant. This is a Crookes tube, obviously. Again, some people will say, and I won't mention names, that this is just symbolic. Why does it have to be both? This shows a knowledge of electricity that was there. Why, if it's symbolic, do you have a wire being plugged into a box?
I thought that was...
Of course. Now, to finish it, you have to go against the wall to see the final scene.
Wait, sorry.
Go ahead. You'll get time to take the picture.
Oh, yes, I will.
Okay, yes, as soon as we're done.
Sorry, I don't want to...
Next scene. We just want to finish the story.
Yeah.
Again, giant Cometians, the same thing. But here, the beam, and again, the snake is always Kundalini energy, always electricity. The beam is being deflected. Why is it being? He's holding up these knives. This creature, argument, it's always an argument what this creature is. Hakim said this is the baboon, the companion of Jehuti, Thoth, and it's a symbol of wisdom. But Heike Wesselman, who came with me, who was an anthropologist, said, no, baboons don't have tails like this. He thought it was a reptile. Whatever it is, whatever you want to think. But it is a creature, and Hakim would say, it is the texts that tell us what's happening here. The texts say that this is a knowledge of credible energy and wisdom that can be abused. This is the origin of the myth of Atlantis right here, folks, from the old kingdom of Egypt, saying that the ancient people had a great knowledge, a great technology that could be abused in modern times. This is a warning to the dynastic people from the ancient Cometians, but first written in the modern script, that great knowledge was known, a great wisdom can be abused. That's the warning. They had the knowledge of electricity, clearly. Anybody can argue symbolic all they want. This shows they had an actual practical knowledge of electricity.
So with the two knives that are being held, could it be symbolic of one can cut and make you bleed, and the other can cut and be of use? So either it's of use or it's of abuse.
Very good, because Hakim would totally agree with that. Everything's in polarities, everything's in duality, and he's using both hands.
Right.
Exactly. But the text warns against the abuse of this knowledge.
Wow.
found in a vast burial site near Egypt's oldest step pyramid. This simple carving is known as the Saqqara bird. It is believed to hold the key to an incredible enigma. What is surprising about the Saqqara bird is its aerodynamic precision. The shape of the wing and the fuselage seem to have similarities to modern-day aircraft engineering. Could the ancient Egyptians really have possessed the technology of flight over 2,000 years ago?
Man's always seen the birds and he's wanted to fly himself. And I think the Egyptians thought that flying was a godlike property. And maybe this was their transcending to become gods. One of the ways they would do it would be through flight.
Simon Sanderson is an aerodynamics expert who has long been fascinated by the Saqqara bird. He plans to use the latest scientific techniques to unravel whether the ancient Egyptians developed a model for a full-size flying machine. Using cutting-edge technology developed by the University of Liverpool in England, he will conduct the ultimate flying test.
The top of the wing is curved on both the leading and the trailing edge, which is not quite the same as a modern-day wing, but is a shape that will give some type of aerodynamic properties.
Theory after theory has sought to decode the Saqqara bird. Now, state-of-the-art science will seek to crack the mystery once and for all.
The Saqqara bird has provoked this fascinating discussion as to whether the ancient Egyptians did actually know how to fly.
After painstaking 3D analysis, Simon and his team begin to construct a model of the Saqqara bird.
We're actually going to make a model of the Saqqara bird which is 5 times bigger than the original because the original was very small. The Saqqara bird is definitely the first step on the way to the understanding of aerodynamics.
Here at one of the world's leading aeronautics research institutes in Manchester, England, Simon prepares to subject the model to a series of scientific tests. This groundbreaking analysis will at last unveil the secrets of the Saqqara bird's aerodynamics. Using this high-tech wind tunnel, the team builds up a complete picture of how the ancient wooden carving would have reacted had it ever flown. By introducing smoke into the tunnel, the team can see clearly whether the model has the aerodynamic properties of flight.
We're running the glider at a constant speed, slowly increasing the angle of attack, and then measuring the forces which it's producing. That way we can learn about its flight characteristics.
The results are promising. Perhaps a full-size Saqqara bird could have flown.
At 10 degrees, we're producing about a couple of newtons of lift.
Oh, 10 degrees, it's 4.5 newtons of lift.
So we're actually producing 4 times the glider's own weight in lift.
Yeah.
So it actually would be flying now.
Yeah.
That's good. We're getting close to going and building a flyable Egyptian glider.
Simon's findings suggest that over 2,000 years ago, the Saqqara bird may have soared high above the Egyptian desert. Simon takes the model to Liverpool University, where it must face the same trials as a modern fighter jet. Using data obtained from the wind tunnel experiments, the ancient Saqqara bird is to undergo the most rigorous scientific analysis that 21st century technology can deliver.
Yep, ready for the test.
Champion glider pilot Simon Sanderson's skills will be pushed to the limit as he tries to negotiate a virtual 3D landscape modeled on the ancient Giza Plateau. At the rear of the carving, a segment has broken away at precisely the point that a tailplane might have been fitted. Back at the wind tunnel, Simon and his engineers make the crucial adjustments to the model. As the pilot takes the controls, the model begins to climb towards the heavens. The Saqqara bird glides effortlessly high above the Egyptian plateau, riding the airstreams like an eagle. Over 2,000 years after the ancient Egyptians carved this mysterious bird, modern technology has proved beyond doubt that it could have flown.
It was incredible. The Egyptians had very sophisticated knowledge in other areas, so why not in aerodynamics as well?